Plot structure. Creative writing 1. Today we're going to be talking about the basic elements of plot structure, something that you need to keep in mind as you are drafting your first story. Let's take a look at plot structure. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. We can divide stories into 3 separate acts. In the beginning of your story, you are going to start off with your setting. In the setting, you are going to introduce the scene, your characters, and the conflict. Next, you'll have a setup. In the setup, you're going to have an event that takes place that sets the story into action. Usually we refer to this event as an inciting incident. You may use your story opening strategies during the setup to create automatic conflict. As the story progresses past the setup, we have the rising action. The rising action can be seen as a series of different obstacles that your protagonist will face as they are journeying to resolve the conflict that is introduced in the beginning of the story. As the story progresses, the conflicts increase, the obstacles increase in challenge. As tension increases and the rising action progresses throughout your story, eventually we'll reach the climax. The climax is the culminating point of your story, where your protagonist will meet face-on the conflict that was introduced in the beginning of the story. After the climax, the story decreases in action. This portion is called the falling action, and eventually we reach a resolution or a reaction to the climax. This is the end of our story. You'll see that our story structure is broken down into 3 essential parts. Act 1, or the beginning, is known as the setup. Here's where you are going to introduce the setting, the characters, and create an inciting incident that propels your story into action. Act 2 is the confrontation. Act 2 is where the rising action takes place and the climax is. Act 3 is the resolution. During the resolution, your character will deal with the outcome of the climax, and the story will eventually end. The majority of your action takes place during Act 2. Whereas the tension builds and we reach the climax, this is where the majority of action takes place.